What's up, everybody? Thank you guys and gals so much for joining me. My name is Joseph Puckett here with Craig Wiggins Coaching and my very good friend, David Banko from Dart Direct Mail. But before I pass it to David to dive into how to win with direct mail, jam-packed with tons of information, powerful tips, I hope you're ready to take lots and lots and lots of notes. But keep in mind, I am recording this call for CWC members. I will have this on the platform in probably an hour or two after we wrap the call. I just have to upload it to wigginsuniversity.com, let it process, and I'll put it in the live training with Joseph course. The live training with Joseph course, just like to do all of my live weekly trainings that I host, but I'll do a little bit of housekeeping. So for some of you, you have the ability to chat. Feel free to chat questions, or if you don't have the ability to chat because your carrier has blocked that access on your computer, feel free to submit a Q&A. Down at the bottom, the Q&A button, I'll be moderating the questions all throughout the call, and at the end, once David's done with his presentation, we want to try to get to every single question. Now keep in mind, some questions are similar, so don't be upset if I don't ask your question directly because it was similar to someone else's. But with that said, I want to welcome you all. We're down to less than, 3 weeks left in the year. It's really important that we hunker down and that we're working to finish strong, sprint to that finish line and gear up to 2020 and beyond. And I hope that we all can just walk away with a lot of great information today from our awesome friend, David Banko. Just a quick plug for Dart Direct Mail. We use Dart Direct Mail for years, and he's awesome, has tons of great campaigns, some of which he might show you today, but auto mailers, condo mailers, specialty mailers. David can even do other custom things for your agency if you have custom campaigns that you want to do in your community or things like that. Great guy to work with, awesome pricing. Make sure that you tell him that you're with CWC, and he'll make sure he gives you the best pricing. Isn't that right, David? But with that said, I'm going to pass it to my friend David so that he can take it away for his awesome presentation. Then I'll come back on the screen for the Q&A. Take it away.
All right. Let me know when I can share here. All right. Give me 1 second when I put this up in the show.
Let's see here.
All right.
All right. And then swap that display again, then we're good.
Yep. All right.
Beautiful.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. So I want to make sure everybody can hear me all right. If I'm talking too loud, just let Joseph know and he'll let me know here. But I appreciate the introduction, Joseph, and I appreciate everybody being here and letting me talk with you a little bit more about how to take advantage of specific marketing ideas, and specifically with direct mail. But I want to say 2020 kind of been a crazy year, I know, and it's kind of changed the rules and how we think about things and how we present to clients and how we market. To be honest, I mean, people are still worried about their jobs, they're worried about the economy, and we're hearing seemingly bad news every single day about how this virus is impacting us. But it causes feelings of uneasiness. And it has people really grasping for two different things, and that tends to be security and savings. What I envy about you guys is you're able to provide that to them both, which is precisely what your industry offers them. So I want to start off today with a quote. It's one of my favorite ones. "Never let a good crisis go to waste," by Winston Churchill. This is your crisis. Okay, I mean, the whole country is in a crisis. So today we're going to talk about how you can market in times of this crisis, and specifically how to use direct mail to do that. And a quick background on myself. I'm president of Dart Direct Mail. I've been in direct mail business now for almost 20 years. Been in marketing business my whole career. So what I want to do is pass along a little bit of that knowledge, pass along about things that you can do and things that you can take advantage of, whether you're using a company like us or whether you're doing it by yourself. I'm trying to pass along some tips so that you can find out what are the best direct mail practices and how to get the most out of your specific campaigns. So we want to start with why direct mail. And direct mail may be the dinosaur in the industry, but I like to consider it the most consistent dinosaur, the longest living dinosaur. And why? Because direct mail, as some other ones, has a lot less competition these days. Outside of the political mailings of the last couple of months, just give an example as opposed to emails. You get 605 emails on average a week, but that's 16.8%. Direct mail sticks around, lasts for an average of 17 days. 73% of American consumers say they prefer to be contacted by brands via direct mail, where they can read it whenever they want. It gets read 90% of the time, compared to like 20, 30%. And 98% of the people check their mail daily, and they can spend up to 30 minutes on their mail on a single occasion. So that gives you a parameters of why direct mail. But let's jump into our market potential, which is essentially just a fancy word for saying where to market. And so what I generally recommend people doing is starting in their own backyard, starting at a 5 to 10 mile radius around your agency. That's where you're known in the community. People may have seen you. They have neighbors that are working with you. It's generally a good place to start. And it doesn't mean you have to be confined to that, but on average, that's a good rule of thumb. Just start in your backyard so people can get a better idea of who you are, what you are, and then you'll tend to see some of your best response again right from that immediate radius of your location. And one of the great things about direct mail is it allows you to really dive into the demographics of the industry. There's so many different pinpoints and lots of different pieces that you can utilize to target just the people that you want to hit. So with direct mail, you're not having to reach out to everybody like, let's say, television or radio would be, but you're just pinpointing exactly who you want to go after. So the top 3 things that I suggest people go after to start with a campaign like this is home values, square footage, and the age of home, all of which is regularly available. And there's lots of good data sources out there that will get really specific down to the types of categories out there. But home value, square footage, age of home, top 3 things that I generally suggest people go with. So for the home values, I generally say, let's start big and go with the top 70% of the values in your area. And that basically just cuts out the bottom 30, which will be a little bit harder to ensure and maybe not give you the same opportunities as, let's say, the other 70%, but that's a good place to start. Square footage is also something that I encourage you to look at, because that gives you the potential of what the home offers, and it allows you to get real specific when it comes to quoting. So the other thing that it does is it also validates the home values that you can see. So you can use some correlations to hit the square footage and home values. Age of home, of course, that's going to show you where your opportunities lie and where you can be most competitive. But with direct mail, you can really dive deep into the demographics. There's thousands of those points that you can use to go after people and say, you can look at credit ratings. You can look at how many kids that they have, how many cars that they own, what types of cars that they own, what their profession is. And so you can really dive down, and you can get to a point where you go overboard. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're going to look at a 5 mile radius of your agency. You're going to look at only people between the ages of 38 and 43, and only assumed credit scores of over 750, and 4 cars that are all BMWs. That's a great market to go after, but you may only find that you have 4 people in that radius. So you've got to really get a good pool of candidates and pool of potential customers to go after. So don't dive too deep into the data. And the last one is to utilize your market opportunity reports, which gives you closing percentages of the specific areas around you. Now, it's available from a lot of different carriers, but it's one that I generally suggest people start with as far as the choosing which maybe zip codes around them are going to be most advantage, more that they can most take advantage of. All right, so as you can see, the data part of what we do is extremely important, and you've got to get this piece right, because if you have bad data, then you can run into some big problems. So as an example of why data is important, 70% of campaigns that fail because of bad data. Okay, so you can have a perfectly crafted message delivered at the perfect time, and if it's to the wrong crowd, it's going to fail. I'll give you an example. If you are Pizza Hut selling your meat lovers pizza, and you only have a list of vegans and vegetarians, it's not going to go very well. Okay, you could have the perfect imagery, you can have the perfect wording for the piece, but again, wrong audience, it's going to fall flat. And here's a key. All data is not the same. At Dart Direct Mail, we are not a data compiler. So we have to source all of our data from other different partners, and that's all around the country. And trust me, data is not the same. It's wrong to think that it's all good and it's all from the same source, because it really isn't. You've got to have reliable data. So here's a couple tricks that we use to look at databases and evaluate how good they are. So the first one that we do is we take very known areas. We start with trusted list, and you can use the same thing by, let's say, using your own neighborhood. And what you do is you get a sample list of just your neighborhood and look at all the specifics that each of that list has to offer. You're going to know the home values, you're going to know around the square footage, you're going to know kind of the details of how many kids they have, things like that. So you find what that is, and you can evaluate lists that way. And once you find a list that you like, you can also do comparative data. So you can grab, let's say, maybe a bigger area, maybe an entire zip code, and be able to look at how much of that data is overlapping. Where you have the overlapping data, that shows that that's a pretty good list. And so what we found when we've looked at lots of national types of lists is we found two that we feel are that are the best that we can find. And I'm going to give you a spoiler alert here. Sales Genie isn't one of them. Now, Sales Genie, it's not like it's bad data, but at the same point, if it there's a lot of areas that aren't great with that, so we don't use that as far as our top two, but we do use it every now and then in very specific type of markets. So now that we've talked a little bit about data, I want to go into a little bit about the pieces of that. So there's lots of different ways that you can present this once you find your audience. So my experience is that you've got to be real specific with what you're trying to do and to use data to your advantage. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get their attention. So when they're leaving through the mail, you want to make sure that they stop and read your piece. So you've got to be attention grabbing. This two here are examples of more generic type postcards. Not a real lot of bite to them. You know, I'm your local agent, give me a call. Not very much of a incentive here. Call me for all your insurance needs, which honestly is the one I hate the most. But that one is the an example of what you can do, but you're really not putting teeth to it. Get more specific, get more personalized. Here's another example by utilizing that a little bit more. You can see on the one on the left, it's much more targeted towards life insurance. The one on the right is targeting new movers. They're taking that data, making it personalized, and that's what I mean by all of this, this type of thing. But you've got to get their attention right away. The more personalized you are, the more attention you get. And even if it is just, you know, grabbing their attention from intrigue, that's still going to be better off. And here's an idea that you can use, especially when it comes to letter mailings, is you try and get that intrigue. You know, the one you can see on the top left is one that shows a picture of their homes, showing them what you're going to do. The intrigue piece is where they have a handwritten sample. The one on the bottom gives you important insurance information. It creates that intrigue, gives them reason to take a look at your piece itself, which is all the goal that you're trying to do. So let's talk about a little bit about some personalization tips that you can use. Give them a reason, like I said, to look at your piece, even if it's just intriguing. Keep it personal. The more information you have about them and their home, better response. Remember when you're going after them to keep in mind what's in it for them, not a win-win situation, but specifically what's in it for them. Always put in a fear motivator. And this one, FOMO, is a fear of missing out. So put that in there and give them a reason to call and what will happen to them if they don't call you. And that could be something seriously, you're going to pay too much, or you're going to miss out on an opportunity if you don't act now. Make it a one-to-one feel. People don't like dealing with corporations. They like dealing with other people. So the more personalization you can put from your end, in other words, giving them a person and a face that they can talk to, that's great. This is another part of that personalization. Use it to your advantage. Pick out a piece and find the specific demographics and attach specific messages that go after their demographic. Give them specific instructions of what you want them to do. It could be as simple as call us today, or it might be visit our website to get your free analysis or something like that. Because when people see the piece, they're intrigued and they want to call. It's so much easier and so much better of a conversation to start off with if you tell them what to say when they call. I know it sounds very remedial, but the more specifics that you give, the easier that it is going to be to get into your conversations. And while you're putting this type of information down, it's easy to get overinformed. Remember, the purpose of this piece is to elicit an action, and you want them to call you or visit your site. So just give them enough information for them to contact you. You don't want to oversell them. And, it would be nice if they just call up and say, okay, where do I send my check? But in the cases of most direct mail, you want to elicit a secondary reaction. And if you're doing things where you are mailing them often or multiple times, keep it updated and keep it timely. Don't send the same piece year after year after year to the people multiple times, or your message is going to get stale. So let's recap to where we've got now. So we've talked about the audience. We've got the good data. We've have the right type of piece. Now we need to talk about timing. And timing is a critical piece to this whole thing, because if your timing is off, your response rate's going to fall flat too. So one thing that we use in considering the data again is using X date information to hit them. So it's not like people have circled on their calendars and like birthdays of when their insurance X date is. They're relying on their agents and they're relying on their carriers to remind them. So those are usually sent out, as you all know, between 40 and 45 days, and landing in homes 30 to 40 days. So if you want to capitalize on an opportunity, making it personal, then you want to focus your pieces to hit within that 30 to 40 days prior to those X dates, because that's when they're receiving their renewal notices and your pieces are landing. And especially if you're running a save money type of campaign, this is the opportunity where they're thinking about it. So if you hit too early, in other words, when it's not even something that they're thinking about, or you hit them too late and they've already have maybe renewed their policy already, then you can run into trouble and you can really see your results diminish. And if you think about it, if you're mailing out these at just once a month, you're missing out on 66% of your potential response, because only 33% are going to be within that 30 to 40 day window. So timing is very important. So now that you have that piece down, let's talk about what happens now. You have your piece out. It's a good piece. It's to the right people. It's at the right time. Now, what do you do when you handle a response? Obviously, the goal of any mailing piece or advertising is to help you start conversations. You want to engage them not only in their homes, but also about their other potential policies like their auto, their second home, their ATVs, their umbrellas, all that stuff that you want to make them start, and you want to get them started as a conversation so you can get on the right foot. So when they're calling in, I mean, you've got to treat these leads like gold. I mean, direct mail is not cheap. I mean, these leads that are coming in are very active, meaning that they are, they're intrigued. They're reaching out to you. They're not someone reach out to them and then transferred over to you. So they're very engaged to start. So consider that. So just natural things that I'm sure you all do, but just to kind of keep in mind is be friendly. If you put them on hold for any length of time, thank them for waiting. Start off that conversation well, because this is the first impression that you're trying to create. Your agency, when you talk to them, is the first opportunity that you have to create this good impression. And keep in mind that they're calling you to find out what you can do for them. So keep that always in kind of top of mind. So if they're calling and you're doing, let's say, a money saving type of campaign or a teaser rate, that you're constantly going back to all the possibilities that could save them money. Talk about the discounts, talk about what you can do so they're not wasting money and becoming better covered. And this is going to create trust for you so you can generate that good start to that consumer relationship. And here's the most important part of this is to keep your staff well trained. This can be some of your best ROI that you spend. Joseph and his team at CWC have tons of videos on this. They can provide great support. Keep that staff trained, keep them role playing, keeping them practices. And like I said, this could be some of your best return on investments. All right. So now that you've handled the response, let's talk about a specific instance that I get a lot of when you're doing money saving rates and you send them out, let's say a campaign to where they are, you send them a potential premium for what they're doing. And so when they call in, here's just an example of one of those talking points that you can use to kind of get them back to the conversation. So if the first thing that they're asking about is saying, I received one of your letters, I want to find out more information on the rate on the sheet. Okay. And now you've used a lot of assumptions to get to that rate. So start off with something like, thank you for calling, I'm happy to help. For those premium rates on your letters, we made some assumptions about you and your home and what coverages you might potentially need. So let me start with some more details, and I'll be sure to get you a customized rate once we get the specifics from you. Now, let's see how much money we can save you potentially over your existing policy. So you see, you've answered their question and you're bringing it back to specifically why the reason that they're calling. You'll see that this will gain some of that trust right away because you're keeping their best interest at heart. Okay. So another type of thing that we get is when we send out pictures of the home. They ask, how did you get a photo of my house? Well, one thing is we say, address them like this. Thank you for asking about it. The photo is sourced from Google Street Maps view images, which you may be familiar with. Let me assure you, no one from our office went out and took photos of your home. This is directly from the Google Street View application. But I'm interested in finding out how we can save you money. So let's get into the details about your house. Okay. Again, reeling it back. And you think it's crazy that some people might think that you've actually drove out to their house and took pictures of it, but it happens. Get in front of it. Just like the instance with the premium rate, get in front of it early, address it early so you can continue to build that trust. All right. So as an overall, you can see that now that you've got the right piece in the right top, in the right audience at at the right time, and now you're answering the questions right. So let's go back and talk a little bit more about what comes next. So when you have all these pieces and you've addressed all their questions correctly, now you've got to keep score. And keeping score is essentially just keeping track of your response and how it's going. Okay. There's lots of different ways to do this, going from kind of worst case scenario to best. First one's asking the team. You may ask your team once a week, once a month, once a quarter, once a year. Hey, how's it going? And you'll get some feedback on that. Not a lot, but you'll get some feedback. Second one, a little bit better, is you ask them to ask the potential customers how they heard about you and make sure they write it down. It's not super accurate, but it's much better than just asking them to recollect from option number one. The third one is to create a different phone number. It's a popular thing to do because that way it gives you a little bit of technology on your side to where you can see how many phone calls again. You can track the activity based upon that number. But you can actually take it one step further and use what's called call tracking technology. Call tracking technology not only identifies who they are when they called, but it can also track and give you a digital recording of that call. So you can see exactly how many people called. You can see exactly what days of the week people call the most, what hours they call the most, what zip codes they call the most. It gives you a lot of opportunity. And plus, by utilizing a recording of the call, you can actually use that for staff training purposes. You can listen to actual calls and be able to coach them one way or the other. And this is incredibly important. But what the thing about call tracking can do is it can also register those people that called and didn't talk to anybody. So if they're calling you at Sunday at 2 a.m. and they hang up, with call tracking technology, it still tracks who they are and tracks what they've done, how long their call was, if they hung up, and you can even listen to them on a recording hanging up on the call. So it gives you great data, but it also then says, here is their phone number, here's the person's name and address, call them back. And these are reminders that can be done, that can be sent out to you. So you can see how technology really can be your friend in this industry. So I want to go over a little bit of things again about overall on direct mail. Now that we've gotten all the way to the follow-up part of it, direct mail has been, well, like I said earlier in this, kind of the consistent dinosaur in the mix. Yes, it's not sexy. Yes, it's not the most cool thing to do, but it works. And it has worked for decades. And it's really the only thing that hasn't seen much attrition in the last 20 years as far as response rates, as does some of the other major media. But it's not easy. It takes time. It takes testing and measuring and testing again and measuring again and finding out what goes right and duplicate all of those things that are right. And so it gets better and better. So you've got to stick with it. Remember, the worst response rates you're going to get are often the first time you mail. Now, everybody wants to hit a home run, and sometimes home runs happen. But in this case, you just want to function on getting a single and turning that into a double. And then the next time you do it, getting better and better. Because just like you did with your agencies, you learn from your mistakes. It's the same thing with direct mail. You keep on getting better, keep fine tuning it. And when you get the right mix, the absolute sky's the limit. But I've been doing this now for, like I said, 20 years now, and we're continually refining this process and refining the pieces. Because when we get to a point where we think it's great, we keep on wanting to test a little bit more. What markets are coming up? What's happening? How can we make this better? Is always something specific that we're looking at. So there's always room for improvement on this, just like you are with your agencies. You can make this so it is always doing better for you. So keep in mind that you're constantly aiming to keep this in relevant. And while we're dealing with me, I want to give a quick shout out at what kind of we do for agents. So we help them choose the best audiences. We create the perfect piece for them. We help you generate the premiums and the quotes to make it easy. We mail these out weekly, so we can make sure we hit in that 30 to 40 day window. We track the pieces all the way to the home, so we can let you know exactly when the pieces land. And plus we have that digital call tracking technology. So it can track every single piece. And again, even down to the ones that you don't answer. The partnership approach thing that we do is we help you. We want to be an extension of your marketing team. So we're watching these calls with you. When we see that there's a lot of short calls, that we're notifying you to make sure that the phone system is working correctly. And this has happened time and time again. We want to make sure that, something's not going right, that we can come back and we can come in and fix that. So if zips aren't performing the way that we both want them to, we're moving zips, or we're changing premiums, or we're moving the needle all the time just to do that. So that's what we mean by that partnership approach. We're trying to make this both for you and us a win-win experience. We have a few different letters that we do, and I highlight a few of them here. We have our flagship, which is our Google Home letter. We have a condo letter. We've just started out a new Milewise letter, and then we also have specialty mailings that Joseph mentioned before, which as an example here is one of the boats, boat type of mailers. So I know I've been talking a lot, and I'm hoping that there's been some questions throughout the time, but I want to reward you for listening to me. So we're offering incentive for everybody on the call and all of CWC clients, so that we're offering what's called a bump up rate. That means that if you are mailing at least 1,000 pieces a week, we'll bump you up to the 1,500 piece a week rate, 1,500, 2,000, 2,000, 2,500, and get you all the way up to if you do 2,500 pieces a week, gets up to that 5,000 plus piece rate, which is 60 cents a piece. So the caveat here is we got to hear from you before December 31st, for the end of the year at 5 p.m. So you can see I put my number down there and my email address. You can contact me or Tim, and we'll be happy to help you out. So again, I appreciate your time. Appreciate you sticking through this process here to get us to this point. And with that, I'll turn it back to Joseph.
That's awesome, man. Leave that up for just one more second. Y'all take a screenshot of this, take a picture of it, whatever. Reach out to dbanko at dartdirectmail.com or Tim at dartdirectmail.com. They're going to hook you up. Those pieces work. They're really fantastic. Dave, let's take it off the PowerPoint. That way my head's bigger. I already have a big head. That's what my wife tells me anyways. But that way people can see us a little bit better. There we go. Let me make this a little wider so it's side by side on my screen. Man, I want to thank you so much for all of that information, not just, plugging your company, but things and tips that people can use. We have several questions already. So please, at the very, very bottom, feel free to submit a Q&A. That way I can start moderating the questions here. I wanted to give a few thoughts for myself. First, for any of you that are staff on the call, if your agency is involved in direct mail at all, do you see how much that costs? Which, by the way, that's really not that bad, especially if it's driving in conversations. But y'all, if your agency is sending out thousands of pieces of mail a month, don't you dare treat those inbound calls like they're not very important, or like, oh, I got another one. And gosh, they seem so price focused, or they think it's a real quote. This is what people say. Like, I hate getting those calls sometimes because it's such a lowball quote that got them to call. And sometimes they're upset when the rate's different. You're looking at it wrong. You're looking at it so wrong. You should be so thankful that your agency owner is investing in you to drive calls into the agency. Yes, sometimes you'll get a Looney Tune who will be like, I'm ready to pay. Like, we literally had, no, I hate to call somebody a Looney Tune, but we literally had somebody walk in with a check once in the letter. A check, like literally written out, and we had to sit them down and explain that was just an example quote, based on some data that we had already on the home. But you know what? It's just going to take a few more minutes to get the specific info on your home to work up a best policy possible. Don't you worry. I'll make sure that every discount is applied. But let's go ahead and just dive in here. So what was that address in the letter? Here, let me see. Or if they're calling in, what was your address? And just jump right into the quote. Be assumptive, be assertive. Don't apologize. Don't say, yeah, I'm sorry we sent that to you. It was really misleading, wasn't it? No, it may not be. It may not be. You might be giving best estimates. And you know what? Some people will get the best estimate, but some people won't. And that's okay. It's an estimate, but don't you worry. We're going to build the best policy to meet your needs. Now, another common objection that you might get is, well, I don't want to give you all that data. Guess what? They just saved you a lot of time. If they're just kicking tires, they're not ready to buy that car. That's fine. Just thank them so much for the opportunity. Let them know that when they are ready to proceed, that you would love to help them gather their information and extate them in your system. All right, put them in as a follow-up for 3 weeks out. Then again for maybe 3 months out. And then maybe you hit them next year. You might end up closing that sale for someone who was a no today. Other common objections that you might get on direct mail is, they might just want the home policy. And in fact, somebody asked a question here. Evelyn said, with our carrier, we can only write a home monoline if they have good credit. What do I do about those people who only want the home insurance and tell me they don't want to consider their auto insurance with me yet? I hate talking about credit. So Evelyn, what you might say is, if they don't qualify based on just being a monoline, I would still try to lead with bundling everything anyways, kind of like David was saying. Evelyn, I understand that you're very interested in that home. You should be. I mean, it's going to be awesome. I'm so glad that we're talking. But you know what? It's going to make it even awesomer, even better, is if we look at bundling everything. It's going to be a huge savings in that home. So just real quick, what types of cars do you have? Go into the assumptive quote on the cars. Don't ask if you can quote the cars. Sorry, I'm getting all emotional here, David. I'm so emotional over this. Don't ask if you can quote the cars. Quote the cars. But you know what? If somebody says, I don't want to give you any data, I'm not interested in anything else, oh, the rate's not going to be the same, they hang up, next. Right? You'll still get plenty of rejection. You will. But what David said is so true. These inbound calls, these people took time out of their day to call you, to talk with you about their insurance. Those are going to close so much higher than things like live transfers, definitely higher than internet leads, maybe as high, probably higher though, than like working a win back or a requote, which we love. We love working win backs and requotes because those are free leads and we work them over and over and over again. So Evelyn, if somebody doesn't want to do business with you, I wouldn't take it personally. Be okay with that. Next, move on to the
At
next
least
one.
start the conversation with them. That's an important part. You're getting a time up at bat. Okay. And is, to keep that positive and keep that, to a point where you still have their opportunity and you're still going to build that trust with them. Again, it's a time up and bat. And even if it's a strikeout, you still got your shot, and it beats not getting up every time.
Well, we have a lot of questions. I just looked over and it just like jumped. So I'm gonna rattle these off to you. So Doug asked, does it matter in your opinion if the phone number on the letter is a toll-free 1-800 number, or should it be a local number, which is probably what I would do?
Yes, definitely a local number. Again, it's going off that same philosophy of dealing with a person or dealing with corporate. 800 numbers are typically 800 wise, and local numbers are people. And they can see where you're calling from and where you're, how close that you are to them. So absolutely a local number every time.
And Alyssa asked if Craig Wiggins' agency has ever used DART or used DART. We certainly do, and have known David now for several years. Y'all, if you come to the events, David's always there, and you can have a great conversation with him face to face. But someone just asked again for your contact info. So would you mind, I hate to ask you to share again, but can you share that slide one more time? And everybody, get ready to take a picture or a screenshot. But someone asked about that. I'll take the next question while he's pulling up his contact info again. And you don't have to play the slide or anything. Maybe just go back one. Once you get on the contact info. Doug asked if these are Allstate compliant. So if you're with a specific carrier like Allstate, as long as you don't use the Allstate logo on it, things like this are compliant. But if you want to use the Allstate logo, you have to go through corporate and use their tag mailers. And by the way, Allstate mailers or State Farm or Farmers mailers aren't bad. But you know what we found? We found a lot better response rate. When you put the picture of someone's house on a letter, I mean, it's just crazy. Hey, David, real quick, because I'm only seeing the 100. Oh, no, that's it. Let's got your contact info.
Got it? You got it up there?
All right. Yeah, did everybody take a picture? Everybody take a screenshot? Going once, going twice. All right, stop sharing so our face is bigger. You can do whatever you want as long as you don't do the logo on that, and you're not talking about like retirement products or things. So we've been using our own mailers for years, and the response rate is through the roof on these compared to like more corporate-y type mailers.
Mhm.
Let's see here. Brandon asked, how aggressive do you recommend going when sending out the price teaser mailers? I'm assuming he means how low do you go on the price?
Exactly. So you've got to keep it in the ballpark of real, because if you send this out and it's too low, you're not going to get the calls. So you want to make it what would be like the perfect scenario. You know, the people that get the rates, you want to get it competitive enough to where it's achievable, but you don't want to make it ridiculous either way.
And someone just asked again about local numbers for each region that you market. I would
Yes.
definitely, if you're going like statewide, and David can help you all with this if you decide to use Dart, they can look at like doing different phone numbers for different parts of your state. We
Correct. That
stay
only
pretty
go to
local.
particular areas.
Yeah, we stay pretty local because, we just don't really want to go too far out. Because what's interesting? Sometimes agents 100 miles from us are doing mailers in our area, and the customer literally brings it into our office. You know what we do? We're not calling that agency that paid for that mailer. We quote it and we write it. So I don't necessarily want our mailer going to someone else. But if you're going statewide or region wide, just know that that's probably going to happen. Be okay with that, because you're going to get way more calls into your number. Annie Q&A the contact info as well. Annie, I love that. Thank you. Tom said, how long do these prices last? So through the end of the year, December 31st, right?
Yes. December
Alan
31st.
Yeah, Alan Ragus asked David, "Are you free right after this webinar?" So Alan Ragus, maybe y'all can connect.
Yep.
Let's see
Absolutely.
here. What data vendors do you recommend? And if you don't mind, David, before I pass it to you, you guys are great at generating lists and stuff, but I do want to highlight that we have a great partnership with Cole. Cole Information, they're wonderful vendors of CWC. I actually did a webinar with Cole last month. Some of y'all might have been on that. It's in the live training with Joseph course. Cole Information / Cole X States is really great. And if you use our promo code, it's like $200 off or something. But you provide a lot of the data and stuff. I mean, do you have any data sources that you
So,
might recommend?
Cole
Bots?
is an excellent source. Cole is pretty accurate in a lot of different areas around town. They've changed the little things how they've done, which has made their data super accurate. Cole is one of our go-to type sources. Experian is another one that's really good, and we also use a third one that mixes in really good real estate data, and it's using the MLS data, and it's a company called the Mortgage List. And so that's where we get a lot of that square footage from, which can be from these bigger compilers a little bit challenging to get, but they're pulling it directly from the MLS data, which means it's super accurate. So
All right.
those are all good.
Good stuff. Sorry, I'm just typing a quick answer to someone's question. So let's see here. What is your close rate and contact rate? So I'll just pass to you what's a good contact rate to kind of shoot for. And for us, I would say our direct mail close rate's in the 30% range versus a live transfer might be 10 to 15% versus internet leads. I might have to buy 100 internet leads to write 5 of them and call those 100 internet leads 10 times to quote 20 of them to write the 5. When a direct mail piece calls in, you're literally talking to somebody, you're literally quoting them. So your close rate per call is going to be through the roof. But what's a good contact rate for someone to maybe kind of shoot for?
It's a great question because it varies in all different places around the country, and it varies where how competitive the marketplace is, how many people are trying to do the same types of things, and it's also depending on the volatility of the market. If the rates go up and down a lot, you'll see a lot more of that response rate. We've seen everything from 0.5% up to 3% response. The way with our Google mailers, I generally say that it's around a 1% response rate, and that's been actual. And a lot of times it's above that, but that's a good kind of benchmark that we set for all these pieces is a 1% response rate.
Let's see here. Someone asks, should we follow up with outbound calls? Valerie Balky asks, should we follow up with outbound calls? Valerie, I would say that's okay to do, but honestly, cold calling a direct mail list to me would be towards the bottom of the barrel. I want to be working my hot prospects, my warm prospects, my cross sells, my win backs, my requotes, aged lead lists. then maybe direct mail follow-up calls? Is it something terrible to do? Like on your list, do you provide lists that has phone numbers, or some of them no? Like,
So home phone numbers are getting less and less reliable. We actually stopped selling home phone numbers because the rates were, they were receiving so many numbers that were not, they're not live. They would, these triple plays that these cable companies and such have been doing has created a lot of dead leads. And so we stopped selling them. But one thing that we did do as a follow-up, which may make a lot of sense, is we're now selling email addresses to the people's home. So you can add that onto your list, and you could send out mass emails, which doesn't take a lot of time, but gives you that secondary touch. It's a much more recommended follow-up tool because it engages people, lets them read it when they can, and isn't interrupting their dinner, right?
Angie just said, is it just me, or does David kind of look like Craig Wiggins? And I just said, I can kind of see that now. Except
Well, Craig's
Craig
much
has a little
skinnier
bit
than
more
me
hair than
now.
me. I'm just kidding. Craig does keep his hair very, very short. Back to lists. Some people asked about scrubbing. So we have to scrub, like at our carrier,
Yeah.
to remove customers and to remove people on our do not mail or do not solicit list. So do you provide the list to the agency? They can then scrub it and then pass it back to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we provide them in the list in the format that you need to make it easy. So you can just take the list that we send you. We know what columns need to be where, and where, what data needs to be in the correct order. So all you do is upload that. You send us the file after it's scrubbed, and we take care of it for there. So that's one point that we ask you to do, because that's a point that we can't do on our end.
Joel asked a question about on the envelope, where is the permit number and location from? And does it matter if it's an out of state or city, state? So are you mailing from your home office? Is it being mailed locally at local drop shippers? Or like, how does that work? Joel must know more than I do. I just added that extra part. How local does it look?
So it does. So the piece in itself does not have a specific city on it. The indicia does not have a city on it. So you can't really tell where it's coming from. It just has our name, DART, on the indicia. So it's hard to tell when you're looking at that what where it is coming from. Now we have pieces where we mail out where it's just a stamp in the top right, and that doesn't have any quality to there. But the Google mailers, it's a small, very small piece. If you look at the piece again, it's very small in the upper right hand corner. That's on the actual letter that shows through that. So we want them, if they get to that point where they're finding the indicia, they've already read it. We love that part. That means we've got their attention.
If they're studying it that closely, they're interested.
Yeah.
Cherie Withers said, so this is all basically turnkey working with David. Yes, basically.
Yes.
Sarah gave a good tip. I like to mail all of my letters in hand addressed envelopes using colorful pens and fun stamps. I tend to get a lot of feedback on my mail. And I agree with that, Sarah. In fact, if you go to the additional sales strategies course, I think it's chapter 13 or 14, we have a handwritten letter video on the platform. And where we use the little white thank you envelopes, like the little white Allstate mailers, where you can hand address it, hand stamp it, handwrite the little note, send it to them. If you're trying to chase down like a requote or maybe someone you quoted and they're kind of dodging your calls and emails, watch it work. So that's pretty cool. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you do that to hundreds of people at a time. Those would just be the few that you maybe bang out a day. We try to do like 5 to 10 a day per producer, 5 to 10 handwritten cards per day. So if they're working 100 prospects that day, the 5 to 10 that are the best, or that they're really, maybe they were hot a few weeks ago and they've gotten kind of cold, watch handwritten cards work. So use some fun ink, use some fun stamps, put a smiley on it, right? Make it yours. I like that. Morgan asked a question about working with DART. What's the average turnaround time for the mailers at DART? So I guess Morgan's asking if they signed up with y'all, like what does that process look like?
So we do these, as I said, weekly. And so we're adding people every single week. So it's usually about a week to a week and a half process where you can get you started and get you rolling. So it's a pretty quick turnaround.
All right, so I think we answered that one. I think we answered that one. We answered that one. I want to make sure we try to get to every question possible.
Sure.
Evangelo says the envelope with pick versus handwritten. Don't think that the handwritten ones will be open more. Also, what % of the 25 to 40 is age range response rate? I'm 32 years old. When I see something like this, I throw it away. Evangelos, people are going to throw lots of people are going to throw these away. You're just trying to get 1% to take action. So if you have
Right.
5% read it and 1% take action, that's awesome. But again, with a picture of their house on it, they're way more likely to be more interested in calling you back. So just understand, you're still going to get way more no calls. It's all just a numbers game. What's a good volume? I'll ask this. What's a good volume for someone to expect a decent return, like over a month? If if someone came to you and said, "Hey, I only want to mail 1,000 pieces a month," you'd probably tell them no, because that's not a big enough sample. What would you recommend as like a minimum?
I would say we have a minimum of 500 pieces a week for
Okay.
smaller agents, but answering that question specifically, I would say that you need to consider at least 1,000 pieces a week, 4,000 pieces a month. That gives you a good idea of what this can really do for you.
Mike asked, how accurate are X dates now? If an insured switched brokerages, does the data system know when they switched that, or is it all just tied around like when they bought the home and we're just kind of guessing at their X date?
Well, the X date is based upon the date that they're buying their home, but it's not perfect. No
Okay.
data is perfect. It is it's accurate X dates for about 90 to 95%, but we always have a caveat on what we put in there, and we always say you don't have to be renewing to save money with us. So even if they're not, we're still putting in that same message so that they can still give you a call and still feel welcome to call.
Bob just asked, you said sometimes you might not get a lot of response from your first round. How many rounds should it do before you start seeing returns? And y'all keep in mind, there is a tail. Someone might put that letter in their desk drawer or their kitchen drawer, their kitchen junk drawer. Who has one of those? Every time I clean it out within a week, it looks like crap again. I don't know why my kids and wife put everything in there, but they might set it in that junk drawer. And then when it comes time, they pull it out. So there's a tail for direct mail. But Bob asked about like number of campaigns before you can start really measuring like real numbers for ROI and stuff.
Yeah, and it's not so much as how many campaigns, but more of a time frame. So just like Joseph was saying, when people put this away, that they may consider it, or they might look at it 2-3 weeks later, sometimes 2-3 months later, sometimes 8-9 months later that they pull it out. But is to give this thing enough time to work. That's more important than enough campaigns to work. But the point is to continually make it better. Watch your response rates, go to better zip codes, tweak the wording to it, tweak the premium pricing. I mean, it's all a work in progress.
Roger asked, would you ever try to hit the same prospects a few weeks later? Kind of like we call it a double tap. When we call somebody, they don't answer, hang up, wait 30 seconds and call them again. Would you ever double tap mail, or is that kind of a waste? What do you think?
No, it's a great strategy, and especially to do it when you're in bigger metro areas, because that way then you can hit them before they receive other letters. Now, mind you, we're obviously not the only people doing mail, and so when people are sending this out, that there's others doing that. So if you can be kind of the first in there, and you're doing it more at the 45 day, and then again a reminder at the 25 day, I think that's an excellent strategy. And while I'm on it real quick, one thing that I didn't mention before, which is a common question that I get, is, are our zip codes exclusive? Yes, one agent per zip code. Once an agent has that, nobody else can get it. Last thing we want to do is put two of our pieces into the same home. It does nobody any good there.
Let's see here. Daniel asks, would you still have the CWC sales process conversation with these types of prospects? A lot of times they're discouraged once we tell them that the rate won't be the same, and it seems that they have lost interest already. And right now we're just trying to compete with their current quote. So Daniel, I won't necessarily say it's not going to be the same. I would say that's an example rate. And based on the current data that we have on your home, the best option that we have available. But you know what? There's lots of factors that go into this, Daniel, and we're going to create an awesome plan to help protect that beautiful home. Let me go ahead and get this pulled up real quick. What was your address? Is it 123 Main Street or whatever? Okay, and just go right into the quote. Just kind of blow right through that. And yes, as you're building rapport and gathering information, finding out what they do for a living, finding information on their spouse, their kids, their hobbies, their interests, you're starting to educate them, give them good advice, make recommendations. You're then assuming the quote of the other lines, and you're making it all about coverage, 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 coverage. Don't be surprised if 36 minutes later, they're buying a policy that's twice the price of what the mailer was, plus their 3 cars and an umbrella umbrella, and you're setting up a life conversation. Don't be surprised. But if you go into it thinking, oh, this is going to be all about price, you're right. You are the one that's going to direct the conversation, y'all. You must be the professional that directs it. And okay, price is what got them in the door, but you're going to flip that and make it all about coverage and protection and value and yourself and your agency. You're going to follow the CWC sales process and bundle a complete package. We got a couple more minutes here. Let's see here. Ken, if you're looking to only target your local community, which only has about 5,000 households, would this be an ideal target for your company, being that that might not be large enough volume? I think maybe we need to go outside of the local community if it's that small, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that that's something that you can consider too. But in those type of cases, as Joseph said, we're pretty flexible. Let's come up with a solution for you to go after that. I would suggest that, yes, you go after them. And even though it's a smaller community of the people that you want to get to, then yes. But that 5 to 10 rule is flexible depending on population. So if you're in a more rural area, absolutely go out to that 15, go out that 25-mile radius, or heck, go out to the 50 if that's what it takes to get to your numbers.
George says this stuff is gold. However, sometimes they get accused of taking photos from the bushes in front of their home. Quality business comes from these. We just need to close better. So that's funny. You know, some people be crazy. That's what I tell my staff all the time. People be crazy. If someone calls upset, thinking that we're stalking their home or something, kill them with kindness, thank them, and get them off the phone quickly. Because you know what? I don't want them as a customer. If they're that crazy, I'm kind of kidding right now. Let's see here. Trish says or asked, do you charge for all of the addresses in your list or just the addresses after scrubbed for do not solicit type customers? So what's
Great
the
question.
list purchase look
Only
like?
what we mail. Only what we mail.
Okay.
So we're getting more than what we intend to mail, assuming there's going to be ones that are scrubbed out.
Albert says we're in Connecticut and we have to broker our homeowners. Do you have like a brokering type template? Well, Albert, what I would say is this is generic. This isn't tied to any carrier at all. So just publishing the fact that you can help someone with their home insurance, that's going to get them to call in. And if you broker, that's fine. But let's make sure we get those cars, you know, with your carrier, get that umbrella with your carrier, have that life conversation. Y'all, let's go deep into these households. Don't just write that home. Let's get the household. Okay. Let's see here. There's one last long question. I want to read through it real quickly. So no more questions real quick. So that way I can feel good that we answered them all. And then another question just came in. How do you get the rates you put on the mailer? How do you get the rates? So are they estimated rates? Do you use a quoting platform?
So the estimated rates that we use are based upon actual quotes from about 10,000 homes around the state. So we're taking that and we're creating a specific premium based upon all the different variables that we look at. And we custom create that. We send you what those are so you can look at them. And then we're customizing that for your particular area. Now we're looking at the entire state. And so when we're looking at that, then we may need to tweak those down to you. So when we first start with you, that's one of the things that we do is we make sure that we get down to what your area's actual premium and aggressive premium rates are going to fall.
People ask, where did you get the pictures of the house? Google Street View. Does Dark Direct Mail link with Lead Manager? It doesn't link with Lead Manager, but you can certainly upload your list to Lead Manager. However, I wouldn't. I don't recommend outbound calling on these lead lists. Honestly, it's like the bottom of the barrel. So the only reason you'd add them to Lead Manager, I mean, unless if you got their email addresses, okay, fine. You might upload them to your lead management system to like do email drips and stuff and maybe some calls. I'm not telling you not to call, but it would be like the bottom of the barrel for me. But just FYI, this doesn't link automatically with Lead Manager. However, you can certainly upload the list to Lead Manager. With that said, Evangelist had a question that's kind of broad. One of my producers took somebody from lower coverages to max liability, bundled auto, home, umbrella. We were actually cheaper, but they decided to stay with their current carrier for less coverage. Y'all, that happens. And you're like, why? What's up? Sometimes they think it's too good to be true. They might think it's a takeaway rate and that you're just going to raise their rates later. Sometimes they really feel loyal to their current carrier. And you know what? That's cool with me. I love loyalty because you know what? When they come here, they're going to be more loyal to us. Sometimes people just don't make good decisions. Just watch the news, right? Sometimes people just don't make good decisions. What I'd say, Evangelos, tell your producer, follow up with them in a month. Follow up with them in a month. By the time they paid that next bill, follow up with them in a month and say, hey, it's me again. It's been about 4 or 5 weeks since we last talked, and I've just been thinking about you. I would love to get these much better policies for lower rates in place. And I was wanting to see if you just had a couple minutes for me to ask you a couple quick questions. Has anything changed on the application yet? Go straight into the assumptive quote. See what happens after they pay another bill or two. But you know what? A no today is not a no forever. Persistence pays. That's a phrase I use all the time. Persistence pays. You're building your pipeline for future sales. Evangelists, tell your producer to keep leading with liability, keep leading with coverage. Don't be upset that it was a no today. It'll be a yes at some point, maybe in a month, maybe in 6 months, maybe in 2 years. Keep working them. Persistence pays. With that, dude, we literally hit dozens of questions, and I feel really good about it. Any final thoughts from you? And by the way, thank you for taking time, and thank you to the hundreds of participants live and the hundreds and thousands watching this recording in the future. Hello, good to see y'all. Thank you, David, so much. Any final thoughts from you before you kind of take us out?
Again, just to thank you to everybody. I appreciate the time. Reach out to me if you have some questions, even if you don't go through us, and even if you just have questions about your own direct mail, please call me. I'm very open to talking and helping any way I can, whether you're a customer or not. So give me a call. I'd be happy to talk with you. I can evaluate what you're doing and give you some tips, specifically on yours. I'm happy to do that anytime.
Thanks so much, David. Thank you to everybody. I appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of the week. Have an awesome weekend. 3 weeks left. 3 weeks left to finish strong. Don't you leave anything on the table. Let's sprint through that finish line and ramp up into an awesome 2021. Thank you again so much. I appreciate y'all. And if I don't see you again, have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. See y'all later. Bye-bye.